Good, happy Saturday morning, January 11, 2020. I'm Riley King, and welcome to the Riley King Newscast, right here on the Riley King Network. We have a lot of news to get to this Saturday morning, so let's begin. First up, with weekend warm-up come concerns about thin ice. Let's take a listen to that video from WMUR News 9, Mike Cronin.
This economy is not working for most of us. There is not one county in the United States of America where someone working full-time at the minimum wage can afford a two-bedroom apartment. The biggest problem in our economy is simple. People are not getting paid enough.
Old Man Winter is taking a vacation this weekend, making way for possible record-high temperatures.
It's kind of unusual for New Hampshire to have it this warm this late in the season, and we're a little concerned about that.
Concerned because in January, Fish and Game Colonel Kevin Jordan says people are more likely to take risks on the water to ice fish. But to do that safely, we need consistent cold weather. Saturday and Sunday won't help.
A 60-degree day, as you know, can make a huge difference in the sunlight, bright sunlight on a body of water. So something that may be safe this morning, tomorrow morning, very early, may change by lunchtime. So people need to be really careful of that.
Colonel Jordan cautions not to trust any ice right now. He recommends at least 6 inches to walk on it and 8 to 10 inches for snowmobiles and ATVs.
People are out on less than that, I know that, but it is dangerous. Fish and Game never recommends putting a vehicle on the ice under any conditions. I realize people do it, but we don't recommend it. It's unpredictable and dangerous.
If people do venture out, be prepared in case the worst happens.
And if you do break through the ice, it's very easy to break them apart, and you get a couple of tools to stab into the ice to use as handles.
When in doubt, test the ice. And remember, just because the shoreline is safe doesn't mean the rest of the ice is.
This is the year that we need to test it, because we just haven't had that sustained cold weather.
Colonel Jordan says some of the smaller ponds have frozen, but the bigger lakes like Winnipesaukee and here at Massabesic have very minimal ice cover. Reporting live in Auburn, Mike Cronin, WMUR News 9.
Okay, and there you go on that video and that report. So, be safe and do not go on that ice. It is not ready. Due to this weekend warm-up, it will not make the ice ready yet. Lawmakers deny part of AG's budget request. AG McDonald says decision came as shock. Let's take a listen to that video from WMUR News 9, Siobhan Lopez.
This economy is not working for most of us. There is not one county in the United States of America where someone working full-time at the minimum wage can afford a two-bedroom apartment. The biggest problem in our economy is simple. People are not getting paid enough.
These are funds that we use literally every single day.
$777,000 is the amount Attorney General Gordon McDonald says the Department of Justice needs in its litigation fund.
Things like experts and stenographers and witness fees and discovery expenses. Those are the funds that we need to do our job.
The Joint Legislative Fiscal Committee approved just $300,000, more than $400,000 less than what McDonald requested, prompting a statement from Governor Chris Sununu that says in part, once again, the Democrats in the legislature have chosen to put politics above the safety and well-being of New Hampshire citizens. The Democrats must now explain why they are standing in the way of the administration of justice. State Rep Mary Jane Wallner is chair of the committee and says it first made sure the DOJ had the funds to prosecute criminal cases. Her statement goes on to say, quote, "Once that money was put forward, we then voted to cease funding for 2 cases, which put the voting rights of Granite Staters in jeopardy. The Department of Justice understands they can always come back to the Fiscal Committee for funding for criminal litigation and other litigation that will prevent harm for New Hampshire citizens, and we will fund those requests." After a record-tying year for homicide cases in 2019, the AG's office announced late last year it would be hiring 4 new prosecutors. McDonald says this vote will not affect that process. His office will be assessing the possible impact that this could have. Reporting in Concord, Siobhan Lopez, WMUR News 9.
Okay, and there you go on that video and that report. Ten-year-old dog finds forever home after 5 years at the Manchester Animal Shelter. Dog was left at shelter's door dirty and immersed. Let's take a listen to that video from WMUR News 9, Jennifer Crompton.
This economy is not working for most of us. There is not one county in the United States of America where someone working full-time at the minimum wage can afford a 2-bedroom apartment. The biggest problem in our economy is simple. People are not getting paid enough.
Only one other dog has been at the Manchester Animal Shelter as long as Nevaeh, the 10-year-old boxer mix found tied to its door almost 5 years ago, filthy and completely emaciated.
But one thing about her was her tail was just always going.
And it hasn't stopped. The big goofball adopted twice and returned, loved by those who've walked, played, and dressed her up for so many years.
We don't euthanize to make space, and unfortunately that means that sometimes animals are here longer than others, so you get really attached to them.
They say every dog has its day. Well, today is Nevaeh's.
The fact that she's been here so long, it just seems so perfect.
John and Tracy Valles, a nurse and police officer on opposite shifts, ready for a senior dog.
I'm sure she's a little bit older. That's perfect. I don't have to potty train her, and she's not going to chew on my furniture, and she'll sit on the couch next to me. That's all I want. We've got outfits, and we've got toys. We've got a big yard. She's going to be able to
We've got a really big yard with woods behind the yard, and it's going to be a whole different world for her.
She's earned it. She's earned it.
Volunteers coming in to see her off. Tears of sadness, tears of joy.
Oh, complete joy. Complete joy. She deserves it.
It's like what her name means backwards. It's heaven. In Manchester, Jennifer Crompton, WMUR News 9.
Okay, and there you go on that video and that report. Third gender option now available for Granite Staters. Non-binary residents can have X on license. Let's take a listen to that video from WMUR News 9, Kristen Carosa.
We made USAA insurance for busy veterans like Kate. And when her car got hit, she didn't waste any time. She filed the claim on her USAA app and said, that was easy. USAA, what you're made of, we're made for.
This law went into effect January 1st. People can now come to the DMV to change their gender marker to X.
Several people stood outside the DMV in Concord on Friday to draw attention to the recent change in state law.
Today we're just here to be visible because people that don't fit into the gender binary are just so invisible and just seen as one of two options.
But now people can change their gender on their license or non-driver ID card from male or female to X.
It's been a long time coming. I testified at the State House when the bill was being heard.
Representative Jerry Cannon is the bill's sponsor, who submitted it back in December 2018.
It really impacts a lot of people. We don't realize how many non-binary people there are in New Hampshire. It's a lot. Non-binary people need to be proud of who they are. And sometimes the simple things of an X on a driver's license is probably more important than people actually realize.
This person was the first to submit an application. The gender marker on this license officially became X on January 2nd.
The happiest person to ever be at the DMV was me. I am really excited about my X. And I can't believe it showed up in 6 days.
And Logan Snyder wasn't far behind.
It's such a small thing for, the world, and it's a small thing for the DMV, but it's a really, really big thing for us.
It is important to note, in order to change your gender marker, you do need this form, which you can find online. Reporting in Concord, Kristen Carosa, WMUR News 9.
Okay, and there you go on that video and that report. With a month until primary, candidates hit trail in New Hampshire. Let's take a listen to that video from WMUR News 9, Gene Mackin.
This economy is not working for most of us. There is not one county in the United States of America where someone working full-time at the minimum wage can afford a two-bedroom apartment. The biggest problem in our economy is simple. People are not getting paid enough.
Andrew Yang sized up the crowd inside Peterborough Town Hall.
I'm going to give a Trumpian estimate. There are 2,000 people here tonight.
Conceding it was closer to 225, he said primary voters play an important role.
And Peterborough, you may not know this yet, but you must be the wave. You all are among the most powerful people in our country today.
Yang talked term limits, cutting corporate interests, and treatment options in the opioid crisis.
We still have these issues.
Is it okay if I give you a hug?
Oh, you can give me a hug.
Offering a hug to a woman who lost her son. Deval Patrick also campaigned in New Hampshire Friday, speaking about the state's community college system in Nashua before two more campaign stops. And earlier in the day in Dover, Elizabeth Warren faced down a heckler.
Your side was racist! Your side was Iran! Why you side with terrorists? Why you side with terrorists?
After the man was escorted out, she addressed the airstrike.
One of the questions I raised just right after this came out is, does this have anything to do with the fact that Donald Trump is right on the eve of an impeachment hearing?
Warren has seen her poll numbers fading in New Hampshire, but says she has a massive campaign ground game.
I think that there's a lot of energy among Elizabeth Warren supporters. A lot of us are knocking doors. It's going to be raining on Saturday, but I'm going to be out knocking.
And you can expect to see a lot of campaigns out knocking on doors in the next few weekends. On Tuesday, it's just 4 weeks until New Hampshire's primary. Live in Peterborough tonight, Gene Mackin, WMUR News 9.
Okay, and there you go on that video and that report. Wow. On this coming Tuesday, just 4 weeks until primary day in New Hampshire. Coming fast. Warren confronted by angry voter at Dover event. Democratic presidential candidate visits New Hampshire in final weeks before primary. Let's take a listen to that video from WMUR News 9, Adam Sexton.
This economy is not working for most of us. There is not one county in the United States of America where someone working full-time at the minimum wage can afford a two-bedroom apartment. The biggest problem in our economy is simple. People are not getting paid enough.
Elizabeth Warren drew a small overflow crowd to her event in Dover Friday.
I'm sorry there's not more space inside, but I'm really happy that we are this deeply engaged.
But once on stage, she faced down an enraged heckler.
You side with Iran! Why you side with terrorists? Why you side with terrorists?
The man was escorted out, and Warren addressed the airstrike that killed a top Iranian general.
One of the questions I raised just right after this came out is, does this have anything to do with the fact that Donald Trump is right on the eve of an impeachment hearing?
Warren has seen her poll numbers fading in New Hampshire, but still has a massive campaign ground game in place.
I think that there's a lot of energy among Elizabeth Warren supporters. A lot of us are knocking doors. It's going to be raining on Saturday, but I'm going to be out knocking.
Warren recently earned the endorsement of Julian Castro, who wants the first-in-the-nation primary taken away from New Hampshire. We asked Warren if she would commit to keeping the primary here.
I think that Julian raises an important issue. I am very glad that the process we use right now is that we go to 4 states in 4 weeks right at the beginning. It gives us very different states and very different sets of issues that go on. There is no process that's perfect.
Criticism of New Hampshire's first-in-the-nation status often centers around the state's relative lack of diversity. But voters here say national perception doesn't always reflect reality.
Your state is changing, and you have to change with it, whether you like it or not. And nobody's going nowhere. It's just going to get bigger and bigger.
In Dover, Adam Sexton, WMUR News 9.
Okay, there you go on that video and that report. After close call, Dixville Notch will again vote first in primary. Location nearly didn't have enough residents to qualify for polling place. Let's take a listen to that video from WMUR News 9, Tim Callery.
Check out the new me. Check out the new me.
We're the starting gun for the presidential election process.
Since 1960, the people of Dixville Notch have cast their ballots in presidential primaries at the stroke of midnight to be the first to vote. It was all started by town moderator Tom Tillotson's father.
Didn't want to have to drive to Berlin to vote. That's as simple as that.
Dixville Notch has become a must-stop on the campaign trail.
This is a photo of my dad with President Reagan.
But over the years, the population has dwindled. The closing of the famed Balsams Resort didn't help. Until recently, there were only 4 residents in town, a number that jeopardized the 60-year tradition.
It turned out we needed a minimum 5 people to fill the 5 election officials that need to be here in order to have a legal election.
However, as of yesterday, Dixville Notch now has enough people after the man behind the redevelopment project of the hotel officially moved here and registered to vote.
I'm happy to be part of the tradition.
Leslie Auden says it's a decision he thought about for several months.
I'm spending more time over here. And I wanted to make sure that I talked to the AG and to the town's registrar and made sure that I was going to do this in the right way. And
as for redeveloping the hotel, plans are still in the works, but Auden is optimistic it will bring people back to Dixville Notch.
We have 86 people that have pledged to buy real estate with us, and another 120 that would like to.
Tim Callery, WMUR News 9.
Okay, and there you go on that video and that report. And now let's take a look at your 2020 New Hampshire candidate tracker for today, January 11, 2020. We have one candidate in New Hampshire today. And that one candidate that we have today in New Hampshire, Andrew Yang. And he has 5 events today in New Hampshire. His first event, Town Hall at Newport Opera House in Newport, New Hampshire at 9:30 a.m. His second event, Town Hall at McKelvin Intermediate School in Bedford, New Hampshire at 1 p.m. His third event, Town Hall at Hampton Academy in Hampton, New Hampshire at 3:30 p.m. His fourth event, Town Hall at Dover Town Hall in Dover, New Hampshire at 5:30 p.m. And his fifth event, football playoffs and beer event at Revolution Tap House in Rochester, New Hampshire at 8 o'clock p.m. And those are all the events that Andrew Yang has today in New Hampshire. Very busy day for him. 5 events there. Pelosi announces she'll send articles of impeachment to Senate next week. Let's take a listen to that video from ABC News.
House Speaker Nancy Pelosi putting the House on alert, announcing in a letter to her Democratic members that she plans to hold a vote on impeachment managers, then send the articles of impeachment against President Trump to the Senate next week. Pelosi telling reporters she reached the decision on her own.
It cracks me up to see on TV, where's the pressure? You don't have a story.
The move, a necessary step to hold a trial, which will determine if President Trump will be removed from office. The House impeachment managers as well will act as prosecutors in the case. The Speaker also slamming Majority Leader Mitch McConnell for having a, quote, disregard for the American people's interest for a fair trial and dismissal of the facts. Pelosi delayed the process as Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer pushed for witnesses and documents to be included in the trial. This week, McConnell said he planned to move forward with the trial with no witnesses despite Democratic objections.
We have the votes once the impeachment trial has begun.
McConnell insists on using the Clinton model, similar to former President Clinton's impeachment trial, which would include opening arguments followed by written questions. Only after would the Senate decide if witnesses are needed.
We'll get around to the discussion of witnesses.
Schumer says there's still a pretty good chance to persuade about 4 Republicans to vote with Democrats to allow witnesses. Getting witnesses to testify in the Senate would require 51 votes. Monaco Sarabdi, ABC News, Washington.
Okay, and there you go on that video and that report. And that does it for this morning edition of the Riley King Newscast, right here on the Riley King Network. I hope you all have a great day, everyone. And I'll have a news report coming up in a little bit. Goodbye.